Terry, please tell me you know the player I'm thinking of. This player we need to release right now. He just hasn't produced. He sucks.
What's going on, Falcons fans? Logan here. Welcome back to Rise Up Rundown, and if you're new here, welcome. So, in this video, we're going to go over the Atlanta Falcons' biggest needs heading into 2023. And actually, two things before we begin. For one thing, I do know, yeah, sure, the Falcons did overachieve in 2022. A lot of people thought they were going to get only 5 wins and be the first overall pick and draft, I don't know, like a quarterback or so, first overall. But no, the Falcons did end up getting 7 wins, and for a while took first place in the NFC South. They were in the hunt for playoffs for longer than expected. It's all good and well, but I also think anyone that says we aren't this needy team, I guess, would kind of be a little crazy. Like, this team is still pretty big on some needs. We probably could use another linebacker if Casey Hayward doesn't come back next year, or let alone if he doesn't even stay healthy. We could probably use another corner. You get the idea. We could use another left guard, despite the fact that our offensive line was apparently, like the 5th best according to PFF. So yeah, the Falcons are in some heavy needs of a lot of positions here. But what are like the biggest needs that the Falcons need to address basically no matter what? And this leads to the second thing I was going to say is this video ended up being a little more like possibly debatable than I thought it was going to be, because when I say Falcons fans, I'm also including myself. I am one of those Falcons fans that says basically every year the Falcons always get offense in the first round of the draft, but it's time they go get defense, because defense is what's losing us these games. You know, it's like a broken record. We basically say that every year. I'm one of them. But our offense actually needs a lot more help than you might think. And that's why this video came out a little more surprising than I thought it was going to be. There's one offensive group that people might agree is a pretty big need for us. The other one, possibly debatable. There's some people that debate it isn't a need. There's some people that say it is. So we'll see. But enough talk. Let's get straight into it. All right, so we're not going to go into offense just yet. The first big need that the Falcons have to address seemingly every year is pass rush. I'm literally not going to go over this for all that long, because the Falcons literally hired a defensive coordinator that specializes in pass rush. Ryan Nielsen. Oh, I don't know. He played defensive line as a player in college and in the NFL. And in the college and NFL, he also was a defensive line coach for many years. What, do you think the Falcons just hired him in hopes that he can turn around the safeties? No, like, obviously the Falcons picked him up to specialize in pass rush. And not even just so he can coach up a pass rush, but also probably to recruit in some great pass rushers, whether it's in free agency or in the draft. So that's literally all you need to know. Well, actually, there's a little more. Grady Jarrett did get a little frustrated last year when we got eliminated from playoffs. Does Grady Jarrett end up leaving this team if we don't make playoffs next year? And he goes, you know what, this team sucks. I want to play for a contender. I've already proved myself. I don't know. It's possible. I like Arnold Ebiketie, but he's still got to develop. And I think you keep Lorenzo Carter. There's some players that you like to work with, but overall, the Falcons do need a pass rush. The second big need is wide receiver. Now, I knew wide receiver was a need for the Falcons, but I admit that I underrated how big of a need it actually was. Drake London is a hopeful future wide receiver number 1, and somehow over all these years, Olamide Zaccheaus is still on the team, and he's still making some noise despite the fact that Matt Ryan's not his quarterback. But then what? Like Kaderl Hodge, Demir Bird. I mean, you know well that every other fan base that looks at our wide receiver depth chart, they're just laughing. The Falcons wide receiver group is not good. I mean, you know, the Falcons don't have to get DeAndre Hopkins if they feel there's a better receiver in the draft, or if there's a better receiver in free agency. But I also don't think that you guys would disagree that you would rather have DeAndre Hopkins over Demir Bird. our wide receiver group is just not scary. And I do also admit that that's probably why we were a run-heavy team last year. It's because, yeah, sure, like a lot of people roasted Marcus Mariota and how kind of poor Desmond Ridder was for most of the year. Quarterback play was pretty weak. But it's not like they had the best receivers to throw it to either, let's be honest. So receiver is a pretty big need. I mean, we didn't even keep most of the receivers that we got last year. Like, we didn't keep Bryan Edwards, Auden Tate, and Geronimo Allison, and they were there in hopes that they can be these big blocking receivers for the run game, but also be these big contested catchability receivers, and they didn't even stay on the team because they didn't do anything for us. So wide receiver is a big need, and Arthur Smith is an offensive guy. I'm not scared on if they're going to address this or not. They will. Now, when will they do it? I honestly hope it's not in the first round again, but it can be in the draft. I don't care if it's like the second or third round or below, or if it's in free agency. They're going to address wide receiver. I'm not worried about that, but it is a need. Now, the third biggest need, this is the only like possible, like debatable one, quarterback. Now, you know, there are some Desmond Ridder truthers, now, maybe they're just joking about it, but they're like, Desmond Ridder beat Tom Brady. I think that was enough promise to prove that he's the starter in the future. Like, maybe they're just joking, but if they're not, like, obviously there's people that really are high on Desmond Ridder, but then there's some non-believers in Desmond Ridder, or maybe they're just Marcus Mariota stans. I don't know, but they're like, guys, Desmond Ridder didn't even play that well. And my honest thoughts is I like Desmond Ridder, but there are some harsh reality stuff that I have to get out there. I'll go over the negatives, but then I'll go over kind of this weird positive. Let's be honest, Desmond Ridder was not drafted by the Falcons in hopes that he was going to be the savior of the franchise. That's kind of like if you pick up Tom Brady from the Bucs. Like, the Bucs obviously got Tom Brady in hopes that he can win them a Super Bowl. And say what you will about Russell Wilson, but the Broncos got him because they were hoping he would turn around the franchise. And Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars, they drafted him in hopes that he could be the savior of the franchise. But Desmond Ridder, I don't think anyone's seriously debating that the Falcons, they did not pick him up because they were like, crap, we need a replacement for Matt Ryan. Desmond Ridder really looks like he's going to be the guy. He was a third-round pick. Like, if you get a quarterback in the first or maybe second round, or a big name quarterback in free agency like Russell Wilson or Tom Brady, that's kind of like, okay, yeah, obviously you're expecting a lot from these guys. Heck, why do you think there's big Lamar Jackson rumors from Falcons fans? Because they're hoping he can turn around the franchise. But a third-round quarterback, I don't think the Falcons picked him up in hopes that he would save this franchise. He's more of a project. And Desmond Ridder, I'm not trying to shred him, but let's be honest, he didn't really play that well last year. And I know it was his rookie year. He didn't even play a full season. You're not really supposed to play well in your rookie season in general, really. He only played well in like the last two games of the season versus the Cardinals and the Bucs, but I'm not trying to shred him even more. But let's be honest, those teams were kind of easy to beat. Like, the Cardinals defense was a little better than expected, but still, though, that was kind of a lifeless Cardinals team that, they were about to fire their general manager and head coach, and, the Buccaneers, like Marcus Mariota stands, of course, were making fun of the fact that Desmond Ridder was throwing to backup Buccaneers defensive players, but they're not wrong. Desmond Ridder was throwing to backup Buccaneers defensive players. But against, the Saints' apparent, according to ESPN, top 5 statistic defense, I know it was his first game. I understand that. And it kind of goes back to receiver. Like, he didn't have the best to work with. Drake London was a great receiver for us all year, but he did have his fumbling issues. But, it's not like he was supposed to play well, but still, Desmond Ridder didn't really play all that well. And then against the Ravens, yeah, it's John Harbaugh's defense, and it's only his second game in the NFL, but still didn't really play that well. I mean, why do you think the Falcons were not so desperate to start Desmond Ridder? Marcus Mariota is not a good quarterback, but he's started for much longer than he should have. Didn't really look like the Falcons were all that committed to Desmond Ridder because there were also these Jimmy Garoppolo rumors over the offseason. And I'm not trying to shred Desmond Ridder. There's a weird positive I have is this is a big need over the offseason that weirdly you don't need to address by actually getting a new quarterback. What? Here's what I mean by that. Quarterback you can develop this year, and you can get these new wide receivers and, of course, develop the offensive line even more. Arthur Smith in year 3 hopefully has a lot more tricks up his sleeve, and Desmond Ridder needs a full year to develop as an NFL player. So this is a big position of need that we don't really have to address by getting a new quarterback. We can actually address it by just getting more help around him, if that makes any sense. We need more receivers, and the offensive line does need help, like at left guard and maybe center. And maybe Desmond Ridder with a full year can be much better. But I'm also saying that my expectations for Desmond Ridder as the future of the franchise is not extremely low. Like, I'm not saying like I'm just so low on Desmond Ridder and I think we need a new quarterback right now. I'm just saying, I'm willing to give Desmond Ridder a chance. I actually think it's the right thing to do to not go for a quarterback over the offseason and try to develop Desmond Ridder for the season. I think that's the right thing to do. But I'll also admit I would kind of understand getting a quarterback over the offseason, like Lamar Jackson. Or if the Falcons, it's not going to happen, but if they somehow got aggressive in the draft and got CJ Stroud or something, I don't know. I mean, I would understand it because Desmond Ridder wasn't really all that great. But I'm also trying to give him a little bit of flack, or a little bit of an excuse, I meant. It's because he didn't really have the best surrounding core to work with. He didn't really play for that long. He was only a rookie quarterback, and he still has plenty of time to develop. I'm okay with giving him another year to try and develop him. But I'm also saying that I kind of would understand if the Falcons want to go aggressive and get a big-name quarterback. I hope that made a lot of sense. So quarterback is a need that you can address with help around him, but I also would kind of understand if you tried to get another quarterback, is what I'm trying to say. But let's not shred Desmond Ridder. I like Desmond Ridder. So I'm not coming out as a Desmond Ridder hater. I like him. In fact, I was hyped up when he was the starter for the season last year. And, even on Twitter, I still kind of like to say that I like Desmond Ridder. And I do think it's the right thing to do. I even made a video when I was talking about Lamar Jackson. I think the smarter thing to do is to just try and keep him as the starter for a full year and try and develop him. But at this point, I'm probably rambling on and on. So you guys get what I'm trying to say, but that's how I feel about quarterback. And then the last position of need is safety. Now, this one hurts because I loved Jalen Hawkins coming out of the draft. I said he was a total ball hawk, and he's got quickness and all that. And even, in my preview for the 2022 Falcons, I was hyping him up. I was like, I'm happy I stayed a believer in Jalen Hawkins because he didn't have a great rookie year, but in his second year in the NFL, he did good. And hopefully he can do great things in 2022. And I do still like Jalen Hawkins. I don't know if you have to, release him or anything, but, let's kind of be honest. Jalen Hawkins wasn't that great last year. And maybe you keep Richie Grant as a starter, but if you replaced Jalen Hawkins, I'm not really going to debate it. Yeah, Jalen Hawkins didn't really play that well last year. And I guess we also have a new defensive coordinator, but I don't know. Are you really feeling that confident in Jalen Hawkins to be our next great Ricardo Allen? I don't know, or the next great Keanu Neal or something. I don't know, or just some great safety that you can think of for the Falcons. I just, I like Jalen Hawkins, and I don't know if you have to get rid of him. But if they did, I would be I guess I understand it. And Am I feeling confident that he's going to develop into more than he actually is? Not really. But I hope so. I root for it. But, you know, I don't think anyone's seriously sitting here saying Jalen Hawkins is like the future of the Falcons for the safety. But I don't know. That video maybe came out a lot more controversial than I thought. But maybe it also didn't. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I'm just very interested in hearing your thoughts. And let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys this Tuesday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Love and appreciate y'all for the support. And as always, rise up.